Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the NTD webinar Safety and Security Rail Mode Reporting Conference Call hosted by National Transit Institute. My name is Anne and I'm your event manager. During the presentation, your lines will remain on listen only. If you require assistance at any time, please key *0 on your telephone and a coordinator will be happy to assist you. I would like to advise all parties this conference is being recorded for replay purposes. And now I'd like to hand over to Laurie Glickman. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the National Transit Institute, I thank you for participating in the NTD Safety and Security Rail Mode Reporting webinar. The National Transit Institute develops, promotes, and delivers training and education programs for the public transit industry in the United States. We are pleased to have Ann Singleton, Tim Edwards, and James Overbeek as our presenters. Ann Singleton is a Senior Safety and Security Analyst for the NTD program since 2009. Ann has been involved with several FTA initiatives such as the State Safety Oversight Program, the Commuter Rail Safety Study, and the Transit Bus and Safety Security Program in a variety of roles. Prior to Ann's work with the FTA, she was a software instructor and database developer. Tim Edwards is a data analyst for the Safety and Security module of the National Transit Database. He has been with NTD since December 2014. Timothy is a graduate of the University of Virginia, where he received a Bachelor's of Science degree in Architecture and spent 2 years as a transit operator for the University Transit Service. James Overbeek is a Safety and Security Analyst for the National Transit Database. He has been with NTD since September 2015. James graduated from Randolph-Macon College with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Business and Economics. Today's webinar format consists of the speakers presenting the material with a question and answer session at the end. Questions can be submitted via the operator-assisted phone line by hitting *1 at the correct time, or by using the chat pod that is located in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and that can be accessed at any time. If you have not already printed out a copy of the presentation that was emailed to you, you can click on the handout document in the upper left corner of your screen. You can also email Barbara Van Dyke at bvandyke@nti.rutgers.edu, and she will be glad to assist you. I will now turn the presentation over to Ann.
Thank you, Lori. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Rail Mode Reporting webinar. The goal of today's session is to familiarize NTD reporters with the safety and security reporting requirements and the individual reporting forms. We hope that the knowledge you gain today will make your job easier. For those of you that report contracted services known as purchased transportation or PT in the system, please share this presentation with those providers so that they too are aware of what you're required to report to NTD. Today we will show you how to access the NTD system and navigate through the modules and forms. We'll discuss how setup is achieved. We'll review the Safety and Security CEO Certification form, the S&S-20, the S&S-20 Security Configuration forms, reporting on the S&S-50 non-major summary forms, and major event reporting. As mentioned, Tim, James, and I are your instructors for today. Andy Lofton, NTD Project Manager, and Maggie Schilling, the NTD Program Manager, will not be joining us today. Our contact data is provided, so if you'd like to jot that down, please do. If you do not know who your analyst is, it is displayed within the NTD system on the Summary View page in your safety reporting package. Or, of course, you can contact any of us to find out who your analyst is. We'll also be providing this information at the end of the presentation as well. I'm going to start with a brief overview of and access to the NTD system. Who reports to NTD? Agencies that are recipients or beneficiaries of Urbanized Area Formula Program Funds 5307 and 5311 are required to report data. Both public and private providers are encouraged to voluntarily report, as this will increase the federal allocation to the urbanized area. There are some exceptions. Agencies who are classified as small systems or rural reporters are not required to report safety and security data on a monthly basis. However, they do report this data annually. Agencies designated as separate service, build, or plan reporters do not report safety and security data. And agencies who have requested a reporting waiver due to significant natural disaster are not required to report for the period of the waiver. The data reported to NTD is used to provide industry performance reports to Congress to assist in factoring funding allocations for the UZAs, as well as other federal agencies and departments. The data is used to direct, support, and improve FTA programs or initiatives such as the State Safety Oversight Program, the Transit Bus Safety and Security Program, and the Commuter Rail Initiative. The data is also used to generate analyses of trends in transit safety and security. For example, one data product that is available on the NTD website is the Safety and Security Time Series data. To access this, you would go to the link that you see here on the last bullet point. And this time series files, there's a couple of them, but they contain safety and security statistics from 2002 to present. Agencies often refer to these files for peer comparison. There are 6 access levels for NTD reporting. Access levels are defined by the agency's user manager, though once a person is established in the system as CEO or NTD, they can change the access level. The CEO and CEO delegate and NTD contacts have the highest level of access and full functionality to include NTD annual forms, monthly ridership, and safety and security forms. NTD editors, shown in the system only as editor, are the next level, and they can edit annual forms and can submit monthly ridership and safety and security forms. The safety contact can create, edit, delete, save, and submit safety and security forms, and there is only one safety contact allowed in the system. The safety editor can create, edit, and save, but cannot submit or delete reports, and safety viewers can only view data. Safety contacts cannot change annual or monthly ridership data. The person must be uniquely identified in only one role. The designated contacts are responsible for reporting data accurately and responding to questions about submitted data. The designated safety contact and the NTD contact receive the automated late notices and monthly reminders. The person whose email address is displayed under the last modified user column in the safety package will receive reports or forms that have been returned for questions or changes. Your username is your email address, your business email address, in all lowercase letters. Users can change the password as often as they like, but the system requires a new password every 60 days. Passwords must be at least 12 to 20 characters, comprised of at least one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, one number, and/or a special character, any 3 out of the 4. If a user ID has not been used for 60 days, the system will lock that ID. If you get locked out, you can click on the Reset Password link located beneath where you enter your login. If you're not in a locked state, the Reset Password instead reads Forgot Password so that you can retrieve a forgotten password. On March 18, 2016, FTA launched a new website which contains the link to the NTD data. This is a snapshot of the NTD page on the FTA website. Circled is the link for entering the system to report data. The NTD homepage contains a variety of links and resources. The About the NTD section contains an overview of the NTD program, contact information, and help desk contact information. The NTD data section provides access to historical and current annual data, monthly ridership data, and safety and security time series files. Under Reference Materials, you will find the NTD glossary, policy manuals, historical safety and security reporting manuals, internet reporting, quick reference guides, information on training and conferences, presentations, webinars, etc., an explanation of all the forms used in NTD reporting. When you click on the Reporting Tool link, the first screen that appears is depicted here on the left-hand side. Once you click on Agree to the disclaimer, the next screen appears for you to enter in your username and password. To complete the login, this is a snapshot of the first screen you will see. you'll notice that there are menu options across the top in a blue bar. The default screen in the snapshot that you just saw is the News menu option. Here you'll find a variety of announcements and items of interest. The next menu item is the Tasks menu, which shows you how many tasks are waiting for you to complete. For example, one of the tasks may be to manage any pending or incomplete safety and security reports. The Records menu is where you'll go most of the time. This is where you'll go to select the safety reporting package. The Reports tab will display reports that are available to you. One such report would be the Historical Lookup Report, used to view safety and security data reported in prior years. In 2017, we've launched a new report named the Rate Compared to Industry Rate Report, which will compare your agency incident, injury, and fatality rates against the industry average. You can define the period that you're looking for in this report. So that's a nice handy report for you to have handy. And finally, the Action menu item is used to add new users in addition to other user functions. That concludes the menu options. As I mentioned, the Records tab is where the safety and security reporters will go most of the time. To report safety and security data, you click on the My NTD Safety Packages link. Once you do that, you will have access to 2 reporting packages, or 2 years. Currently have access, currently have access to 2016 and 2017, and for a short period of time you may see the 2015 package there as well, but that will soon close. When you enter the reporting year, for the first screen you see is the Safety Summary View. The Safety Summary View displays your agency's name and ID number, your validation analyst's name and contact data, and the start and end date of safety and security reporting, which will always be the current year. While annual data and monthly ridership is reported on a fiscal year, safety and security data is reported on a calendar year. You will also see a table of the various S&S forms, such as the S&S-20 CEO Yearly Certification, the S&S-30 Security Configuration Form used to report your security personnel, the S&S-40 Major Event Reports that you may have created, and the S&S-50 Non-Major Summary Report forms for each month thus far in the year. A few navigation tips. It's a good idea to always close screens when applicable. If you do not close them, the system will generate a task for you on the task menu. If you're creating or editing a form when you click on Close, you'll get a warning that all unsaved data changes will be lost. This will give you an opportunity to save your changes. You may use your browser's back and forward buttons in NTD as well. Your safety and security analyst reviews each report submitted for accuracy. The analyst will contact the NTD reporter via phone or email for questions, late or incomplete reports, as well as for outstanding event notifications that we may have. The various forms and reports do have deadlines. The S&S-50s are due on the last day of each month for the previous month's data. For example, the October data would be due November 30th. This excludes Commuter Rail, as they only report security data, and security data is not collected on the S&S-50. The NTD system sends automated email reminders on the 20th of each month. Note that this is not a late notice. It's just a reminder that the end of the month is coming, so it's reminding you to report your data. The NTD system also sends out automated late emails on the 1st and the 5th of each month. Please note that a report that has been created and saved but not submitted is considered late. When late notices are sent, it's quite common for analysts to receive calls from the reporters saying that they know they completed their report. And that may be the case, but if they did not submit it, there's no submit date in the submit date column, the system's going to automatically generate that late notice because that's what it looks for when it looks to see if a report's late. So if you do get a late notice, please go in and check to make sure that there's a submit date for each of your modes for the month in question. On the 15th of the month, if the data is still outstanding, FTA initiates a delinquent reporter process and adds the agencies to the FTA's failure to report list. At this point, the S&S analyst will contact you to determine if there are any highlighting circumstances why the report cannot be submitted. Failure to report required data can have severe consequences. A failure to report can be submitted by an analyst to FTA if an agency does not submit their S&S-50s on time, has incomplete S&S-40s or 40s that do not comply with reporting requirements and have not been addressed, or if reports are habitually late, or if an agency is late in responding to analyst inquiries, or if the CEO certification becomes 45 days late. Let's take a look at the changes to rail reporting for 2017. The changes are being made to help support changes in FTA's State Safety Oversight Program based on Rule 49 CFR Part 64. All of these have taken effect January 2017. Please do not report based on these criteria any reports you still have to submit for 2016. All of these changes are only for rail mode. If you report for both rail and non-rail modes, you will have two sets of thresholds to apply accordingly. There are both threshold changes and form changes. This is only a list that we're going to look at right now. Each change will be covered in greater detail in the appropriate section. First, there's the addition of serious injuries, of a serious injury threshold. In addition to the current evacuation thresholds, customer self-evacuations are now a threshold where previously it was only a flag. Any event involving a runaway train is now reportable. The property damage threshold of $25,000 or greater has been replaced with a substantial damage threshold. Also, the towing threshold question has been removed from setup screen 2 since the vehicle towing is now included under the substantial damage definition that you'll see a little bit later on. For your convenience, we've provided a table comparing the difference between 2016 and 2017 and the impact of the change. We do expect little impact. There are several textual clarifications on the various forms. On setup screen 1, there's a minor change in the text to other safety event category to now include runaway train events. And this formerly was called OSANOC, other safety occurrence not otherwise classified, so we just shortened it to other safety event. On setup screen 2, for rail collisions, the question, one or more injuries, immediate transport away from the scene, was changed to one or more serious injuries or injuries requiring immediate transport away from the scene. On this screen, too, the property damage question has been changed to, did the event result in substantial damage, with yes and no sections. And the property damage is equal to or greater than $25,000 box has been changed to read substantial damage. On the same screen, the box for reporting the damage amount was replaced with the 3 selections for substantial damage, which identifies if the damage was limited to transit property only or to non-transit property only or to both. Continuing on the same screen, setup screen 2, the evacuation question was changed to, did this event involve an evacuation for life safety reasons and an evacuation of the train to the right-of-way or a customer self-evacuation? The question, did this collision result in a tow-away, again, has been deleted, and a new question regarding the involvement of a runaway train has been added to the screen. On the rail collision event screen, there are some changes to the collision width options. Motor vehicle has been changed to non-transit motor vehicle with POV in parentheses. The non-rail transit vehicle selection has been changed to now read non-rail transit vehicle, and then in parentheses, as you see, transit owned and operated vehicle that is not being used on the rail fixed guideway. So that would be like a bus. And then the rail vehicle option has been replaced with these three more specific types that you see listed here. On the rail collision and the rail derailment, rail transit train involved screen, as well as the other safety event details screen, the question regarding the involvement of a runaway train has been added with selections for the location of the operator at the time of the event. In the evacuation details subform, the checkbox for confirming the evacuation thresholds has been replaced with three options to match the new thresholds: evacuation for life safety reasons, evacuation to the right-of-way, or customer self-evacuation. On injury form, the heading has been changed to confirm that you are reporting rail injuries, and the descriptive text has been changed to clarify that it does not limit the injury to only those requiring transport. Also on the rail injury form, there is a selection to indicate if the injury was serious or non-serious, and if the person was transported. Serious injuries may or may not have been transported from the scene. On the S&S-20 form, all references to number of other safety occurrences not otherwise classified or occurrences has been replaced with the word incidents. Also, the fire section has been moved to the top of the form. On the S&S-20 form, the word OSINOC, again referring to other safety occurrences, was replaced with the word incident, and in the fire category, the word events was changed to incidents, and the non-major fire section was relocated to go above the non-major incidents section. Okay, so that was a lot of information. We're going to take a moment for any questions you may have. Just a note for everyone, we are going to be covering each of these threshold changes in much greater detail later on. So if your question is regarding the thresholds, you may want to see if we answer it accordingly.
No questions on the line at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to turn this over to James to go over the next section.
Thank you, Ann. First, we will review safety and security setup and navigation. Modes and type of service available in the safety module are determined by the agency's P20 profile form. If you see any changes to the modes or types of service from what you expect, contact the person in your agency who submits the annual reporting data. If you do not know who that is, contact your validation analyst and we will look into it. Please do not attempt to modify the P20 profile, as changes made here can affect all aspects of reporting and cause modal data to be deleted. Access your reporting form. As a reminder, you click on Records, then My NTD Safety Packages, and choose the year in which you want to report data. To complete those steps, the Safety Summary View displays. You see a confirmation of the reporting year, your agency ID number and name, your validation analyst's name and email address, and your agency's fiscal year information. Below that, you see the form name filter box and all the forms that are available. In the table, you can sort by any of the columns presented to help in locating the form you wish. You can also use the browser's Find feature by doing Control F and enter the number of the major report you may be looking for. However, you must be on the right page to find it. Remember, you cannot open any of these forms or reports on this screen. You first must click on the NTD Safety Forms button located in the upper right corner of the screen. NTD Safety Forms button is used to access the dashboard, where you can create a new report, edit a report, or review an existing report. You can use the filter box here as well to restrict the view to any type of forms you want to see. Also, you can sort the columns as we already outlined in the summary view. When you find the report you want, click on the adjacent checkbox and click on View Form to open an existing report. When you are finished with the dashboard, you want to remember to click on Close, or the system will create a task for you to close the dashboard. This is a snapshot of the dashboard. It looks similar to the safety summary view, but note the checkboxes along the left side. Again, to open a report or form, you click this checkbox, then the View Form button. That concludes the navigation. Let's move on to the S&S-20 Safety and Security CEO Certification form. The S&S-20 CEO Certification form is submitted by the CEO or his or her designee to attest to the accuracy of the major and non-major safety and security data reported for the previous calendar year. The CEO certification can only be submitted by a person logged in as a CEO. The form is due by the end of February of the following year. In January of the following year, the form will appear in the Safety and Security Package for the previous calendar year. The form doesn't appear until this date to prevent accidental early submission. The S&S-20 form can only be submitted by someone using the CEO or CEO designate login and password. However, others may view or save the form according to their access rights. There are 2 reports that can be accessed and printed to assist the CEO in validating the number of reported events and the number of injuries and fatalities. These reports will be located on the Reports tab. They are the Major Incident Summary by Mode Service Report and the Minor Incident Summary by Mode Service Report. These reports provide a modal breakdown of events. Agencies should also use any in-house reports available to help verify the data. Major reporting, the form will be completed with incident, injury, and fatality counts. However, for non-major reporting, the form will be completed with incident, injury, and fire counts. If the counts don't match up with your records, be sure that all the major events reports are submitted. Unsubmitted data is excluded from the S&S-20 totals. The CEO will review each data point and check each checkbox located under the Confirm column heading. Once complete, click on Submit. This form cannot be changed or resubmitted. However, the form is dynamic, and if reports are added, deleted, or injuries or fatalities are added or deleted, the S&S-20 will automatically recalculate. Just a note, if the form does not show a Submit button, this confirms that the person did not sign in with the CEO login and password. This is a snapshot of the S&S-20 CEO Certification form. Let's review the S&S-30 Security Configuration form. S&S-30 Security Configuration form collects the number and type of security personnel employed or contracted by your agency. The S&S-30 form is completed once at the beginning of the calendar year, and you are not required to update this form during the year. All S&S-30s must be completed and submitted to enable reporting. If you cannot create or edit an S&S-40 or 50, it is because one or more S&S-30s is not submitted. This is a snapshot of the S&S-30 security configuration form. Notice you have a place to enter the primary number of security personnel and the total number of security personnel, which is the primary and secondary added together. Do not leave either of these boxes blank. Below is a list of 7 types for security personnel with 2 columns to identify the type as primary or secondary. Primary security personnel is the force that responds to incidents in or on transit-controlled property or are assigned to patrol agency property. For the use of local police non-contracted, use a count of 0. Secondary security force are the ones that occasionally respond to or respond when primary force requires assistance. Again, for the use of local police non-contracted, use a count of 0. Number of personnel is reported in full-time equivalent hours. So one full-time equivalent equals one person working a 40-hour week, or 2,080 hours per year. Prorate the number of personnel if the person works only part-time providing transit security, or they provide security for more than one node. One S&S-30 is completed for each mode. Be careful not to double count personnel. Totaling line 2 from each S&S-30 form should equal the total number of personnel. For example, MVPT mode, the total number is 1.5. LRDO mode, the total number is 3. And for DRDO mode, the total number is 0.5. This means that the total security force for the agency would be 5 full-time equivalent. Your security force covers multiple modes. You may use any reasonable method for determining full-time equivalency. That may be modal ridership or the number of employees covering a mode. Let's look at some examples. If an agency contracts for security and pays a monthly fee based on services used, they should determine full-time equivalency based on the previous year's total hours worked. NTD allows for only one primary personnel type. If your agency has more than one type of security personnel it considers its primary, report the security force with the largest number of personnel as the primary and the smaller force as secondary. For further information on the S&S-30, please see the S&S Policy Manual or S&S Internet Reporting Manual on the NTD website or ask your analyst for assistance. Now that we have completed the S&S-30, we will move on to the non-major S&S-50 reporting. The definition of a report incident is one event occurring on transit right-of-way and a transit revenue facility, in a transit maintenance facility, or involving a transit revenue vehicle. These safety incidents must meet the single injury only threshold and are related to slips, trips, falls, electric shock, etc. S&S-50 form also collects the number of non-major fires where there was no evacuation, no injuries, fatalities, or substantial damage, but still required suppression. The form is automatically generated for each mode and type of service at the beginning of each month. This form is required to be completed even if there was a major event for the month, as they capture different event types. This report also needs to be completed even if there is no data to report for the month. As a reminder, Commuter Rail or Alaska Railway does not report S&S-50 data. For other safety incidents, you are entering the number of incidents and the matching number of injured parties. Remember that injured means that they were transported away from the scene for medical attention regardless of whether they appear injured or not. Do not include people who were not transported away from the scene for medical attention. Here are several examples of injuries reported on the S&S-20. Passenger thrown out of seat due to vehicle maneuver. Improper wheelchair securement and rider is injured. Person falling down escalator in a transit facility. Or a maintenance worker was burned by the third rail. Two of the categories for injuries on the S&S-20 form relate to securement issues. Securement issues are those related to an injury resulting from improper securement of a mobility device, such as a wheelchair or a scooter. So they are reported as other in-vehicle securement issues. The other category is for other in-vehicle, not a securement issue. These are trips, slips while on the vehicle, or for being thrown from a seat during a vehicle maneuver. No incidents occurred for a mode and month. Open the appropriate S&S-20 form and click the checkbox labeled No Data to Report. Then save and submit the report. Remember, do not include injuries due to collision or any other major event type. Again, reports are due at the end of the following month and must be completed and submitted by the due date to avoid an automatic late notice. The S&S-20 can be modified at any time. Some reporters like to enter events as they occur during the month. For these reporters, they can modify the form and save and close the form after each change. The validation analyst reviews each report for accuracy. If we have any questions, we may return the report to you, call you, or email you with our concern. If the return feature is used, the user ID under the last modified user column will receive the email. This is a snapshot of a returned S&S-20 monthly summary report with the analyst comment or question. So not only do you receive an email, but when you open the report, you will be able to see our question or concern there as well. That completes our review of the S&S-20, S&S-30, and S&S-50 forms. Do we have any questions before we move on?
Just to remind you, if you wish to ask a question, please key star then 1 on your telephone. The first question we have is from Susan Mosley. Please go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, for reportable non-major threshold, the criteria is that it has to have sustained an injury, correct? So if someone fell but did not sustain an injury that required transport, that would not be reportable, correct?
Yes,
that's right. Oh, I'm sorry, James. Go ahead.
Yes, Susan, that's correct. In order for it to be considered an injury, they would have to be transported from the scene.
Okay, so any other trip
about S&S-50 in this case, not 40.
Yes. So other falls and trips on the scene, if they did not require transport, they're not reportable.
Correct.
Okay, so if we have been reporting, this is our first year in revenue service, if we have been reporting them, there's not a way to go back and correct them, or you just leave them as they stand?
So they will need to be corrected, and they, depending on which year you're reporting, if they're the 2016, you should be able to edit those reports still.
Okay.
You'll just have to go in and enter and change them as you see, and then please be sure to let your safety and security analyst know what you have changed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Susan.
No further questions at the moment.
Thank you, James. As James said, we are going to be reviewing major event reporting now. First, let's discuss the applicability and reporting thresholds in more detail. The definition of a reportable event is unchanged from 2016. A reportable event is one that occurs on transit right-of-way, in a transit revenue facility, in a transit maintenance facility, or involves a transit revenue vehicle, excluding OSHA events and administration buildings, and meets any of the following thresholds: a fatality including suicides, one or more persons transported for medical attention or a serious injury, substantial property damage, evacuations of a transit facility or vehicle for life safety reasons, evacuations to the rail right-of-way, or customer self-evacuations are automatically reportable regardless of any other threshold. Additionally, all of the following are automatically reportable regardless of meeting a threshold: all derailments, both mainline or in the yard, collision involving a rail transit vehicle at a grade crossing, a collision between a rail transit vehicle and a person, a collision between a transit rail vehicle and another transit rail vehicle, which includes both revenue or non-revenue and maintenance vehicles, and any incidents involving a runaway train. A few types of events that are not reportable. OSHA events in administrative buildings are still excluded. Medically related issues such as seizures, heart attacks, pregnancy, etc., and an operator on break is injured while crossing the street. This is not reportable because the employee is not on transit property. Part of the event definition states involving a transit revenue vehicle. So if a deadheading or out of service vehicle is involved in a collision meeting a reporting threshold, it is reportable. However, if a transit police vehicle or transit supervisor's vehicle is involved in a collision meeting a threshold, it is not reportable unless the vehicles are on transit property. Maintenance-related activities are included in reporting. Here you see a few examples of maintenance-related activities that are reported. A track worker or other maintenance worker event resulting in a fatality, a maintenance employee hit by a vehicle in the yard and is injured, and an evacuation to the rail right-of-way due to maintenance-related issue. Less severe injuries to maintenance workers are captured on the S&S-20 monthly summary report. NTD also collects non-transit collision incidents, such as an accident in a transit parking lot that meets a threshold. A few examples are private vehicle collides with a pedestrian or a vehicle resulting in an injury, or private vehicle collides with transit property, such as a station resulting in substantial damage. Let's discuss fatalities. A fatality is a death confirmed within 30 days of a transit-related event. This includes transit-related suicides. Please do not include deaths resulting from illness or natural causes. For example, a person in the station suffers a fatal heart attack. This would not be reportable. For injuries, an injured person is a person transported immediately away from the scene for medical attention. This includes transport by ambulance or transport by private vehicle. An injury may also be deemed a serious injury, which does not require transport from the scene. Please note the injury thresholds are different between rail and non-rail modes. Information on non-rail modes was discussed in the previous webinars we held last month, and they can also be found in the policy manual. Serious injuries are defined by the following criteria. Requires hospitalization for more than 48 hours, commencing within 7 days from the date of the event. Results in a fracture of any bone, except simple fractures of fingers, toes, or nose. Causes severe hemorrhages, nerve, muscle, or tendon damage. involves an internal organ, or involves second or third degree burns or any burns affecting more than 5% of the body. And substantial damage is defined by the following criteria: damage to any involved vehicles, facilities, equipment, rolling stock, or infrastructure that has disrupted the operations of the rail transit agency and adversely affects the structural strength, performance, or operating characteristics of the object or vehicle, requiring towing, rescue, on-site maintenance, or immediate removal prior to safe operation. Now, there are exclusions to the substantial damage criteria. They are damage limited to cracked windows, dented, bent, or small punctured holes in the body, broken lights, mirrors, catenary third rail equipment, or removal from service for minor repair or maintenance testing or video and event recorder download. Also excluded is personal property, such as laptops and cell phones, the costs of accident or criminal investigation, and medical claims or litigation. All of that is excluded. So let's look at some occurrences that make a collision automatically reportable. First, we have a rail transit vehicle collisions at grade crossings are automatically reportable. The collision could be with an auto, object, animal, and so on. Remember, a grade crossing is where rail tracks and a road intersect. For systems running in mixed traffic, such as many of our light rail systems, each street intersection is considered a grade crossing. For example, if a train and a car collide in an intersection and there are no injuries or fatalities, no vehicle is towed, and no substantial damage, the collision is still reportable because it occurred at a grade crossing. Another automatically reportable collision is a collision between a rail transit vehicle and a person. This is automatically reportable regardless of injury or fatality. And a collision between a transit rail vehicle and another transit rail vehicle is also automatically reportable. This includes both revenue or non-revenue vehicles and maintenance vehicles, such as high rail vehicles. These include events both on the main line or in the yard. Now, agencies are required to report all derailments, both mainline and those occurring in the yard, regardless of meeting any other threshold. This includes derailments of trains in revenue or non-revenue service and maintenance vehicles. So anytime there is any sort of derailment, it is reportable. Similarly, all events involving a runaway train are also always reportable. As for evacuations, all evacuations for life safety, evacuation to the rail right-of-way, or customer service or customer self-evacuations are reportable. Self-evacuations are where the customer vacates the property without direction of the transit agency or other authority. However, if passengers are evacuated or self-evacuate directly back onto the platform due to, say, power loss or maintenance reasons, this is not considered an evacuation. Evacuation may be due to mechanical or maintenance issues. For example, the train loses power and passengers are evacuated onto the right-of-way. Some examples of life safety reasons might be a smoke event, fire, fuel flames, noxious odors, suspicious package, bomb threats, bombings, etc. Let's get into the process of generating a new S&S-20 form. To create a major event report, you will log into NTD 2.0 and select the Records menu option. Then you choose My NTD Safety Packages link and choose the year you want to report in. You'll click on the NTD Safety Forms button located in the upper right corner to access the dashboard. Then to add a new report, just click on the File New S&S-20 button. If you have an event that includes 2 or more transit modes from your agency, you might be unsure of which mode to report under. So if the event involved your rail mode and a non-rail mode, you will always choose rail. For example, one of your light rail vehicles and one of your buses collide. You'll report the incident only once under the light rail mode. First 2 screens will act as a wizard to help determine if the event meets the thresholds. Setup Screen 1 captures the date of the event, the mode and the type of service, and the event type. Here's a snapshot of Setup Screen 1. You can see that the text box for the date and a drop-down menu to select your mode, and then a list of all the event types you can report. First and most common of these event types is a collision. This includes suicides or attempted suicides where there is vehicle impact. Derailments are the next choice, which captures both mainline derailment and yard derailments. Now, if a derailment results from a collision, you will report this event as a collision. Next is fire. For an event to be considered a fire, there must be flame suppression. Non-fire smoke events, or the smell of something burning, which meet another threshold, are reported as other safety events. Then we have hazardous material spills. For an event to be considered a hazmat situation, it not only has to meet a threshold, but the situation would have to require specialized cleanup, such as a hazmat team. The act of God event type refers to acts of nature, such as hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, snowstorms, ice storms, etc., and all other natural events. There are 2 categories of security events. The first is system security events, such as arson, bomb threats, burglary, suspicious package, vandalism, etc. Basically, these are events that affect the transit system as a whole. And the second is personal security events, such as assault, robbery, homicide, rape, larceny, etc. These are events that affect 1 or more persons. And just as with other event types, the event must meet a threshold. Suicides or attempted suicides that are not collisions are reported here. Finally, the last event type is other safety events. These events are those that don't fit into the other categories, but meet a reporting threshold. This might be an evacuation due to smoke or a fall resulting in a fatality. You will notice that injuries of 2 or more people has an asterisk up there. For an other safety event, 2 or more injuries are required if that is the only threshold. Therefore, if there is only 1 injury, then another threshold must exist, such as a fatality or an evacuation. Once you've completed Setup Screen 1, Setup Screen 2 will appear. The second setup screen asks you a series of questions, some of which are based on the mode and or the type of event you are reporting. This is to determine the reportability of the event and the subforms that need to be generated. This is only a list. We will cover each in more detail further on in the presentation. First is the number of injuries and fatalities. Then there was substantial damage. Then there's a substantial damage indicator, the evacuation threshold question, and the runaway train threshold question. So if you're reporting a collision in rail mode, you will also be asked 4 other questions. Were transit vehicles involved in this event? Was the event a collision at a grade crossing? Was this event a collision with another rail vehicle or person? And did this event involve a runaway train? This question will also appear on the derailment and other safety event version of Screen 2. Here's a snapshot of Setup Screen 2 for rail mode collisions. So I mentioned if you choose collision on Screen 1, then Screen 2 captures if there were transit vehicles involved in the event. Select yes if this is true. This indicates purchase. This includes purchase transportation types of service. These vehicles as a transit vehicle, since you are reporting for this service. You would select no when the collision involves a private vehicle on transit property. Based on the selection you have made and questions you have answered, the system will respond accordingly. If the event is reportable as a major event, the basic information screen will appear. If the event is not reportable as a major event, the system will generate a message that the event is not reportable and ask you if you want to continue. At this point, you can edit the selections on Setup Screen 2 in case you answered a question incorrectly, which may have made the event seem not reportable. If the event meets the criteria for a major event, the basic information screen will appear next. The basic information screen displays the date you already selected and captures the time of the event, the approximate or actual location of the event, and the geographic location. Longitude and latitude is required. You are permitted to enter numbers, a decimal point, and a negative symbol for the longitude. Please use a minimum of 4 decimal places. And if you do not have the coordinates, you can use a variety of internet resources. One such site that we recommend is latlong.net. This is a snapshot of what latlong.net looks like if you choose to use it. As you can see, there's a box to enter the physical address or the station name or milepost, and the system will display the coordinates in the latitude and longitude boxes. The basic information screen also captures the event description. The description should be concise but descriptive so that the analyst can understand what occurred, how it occurred, and should include the number and type of injuries or fatalities, but please do not include any personal data such as names and license numbers. The description box can hold 2,000 characters. If you exceed the 2,000 character limit, when you click on Next, a message will pop up that you exceeded the limit, and you will not be able to continue to the next screen until you reduce the number of characters. So here we've provided an example of a comprehensive narrative. You can kind of read over that real quick there at the bottom. Last piece of information collected on the basic information screen is the name and phone number of someone to contact for additional information regarding the event. You do not need to enter the name of the person if they are already the designated safety contact. Basic information screen is also the first screen that the progress bar appears on. This bar is located at the top of the screen and shows you how many subsections you have to complete and your progress thus far. So here we have a snapshot of the basic information screen. You can see that new progress bar up at the top with it highlighted blue up through basic information to show that's where you currently are. And then that's just collision event and collision information coming up. And then obviously you see it pulls in the event date that you already entered. And then you will, from there, enter in the event time, the address, latitude, longitude, and the event description. Moving on to collision screens. First, we will review the details of reporting a collision. The collision screens will vary slightly depending on mode. There are up to 4 screens or subforms that may appear when reporting a transit collision. They are the collision event information screen, the collision information screen, the transit vehicle involved information screen, and finally, if another vehicle was involved in the collision, then the other vehicle involved information screen will appear as well. A snapshot of the collision event screen for rail modes. You can see it's asking for the number of transit vehicles, the location, the collision width, and the number of other vehicles involved. This collision screen is the collision event information screen. For all modes, this captures information about the number of transit vehicles involved. The answer will always be 1 unless 2 transit vehicles from your agency collide. The location of the event, such as the transit facility, right-of-way, both at grade crossing and not at a grade crossing. What the transit vehicle collided with, such as another vehicle, person, animal, fixed object, and so on. And, if applicable, the number of other non-transit vehicles that were involved in the collision. Determining the location, here are a few things to keep in mind. You'll choose right-of-way, not a grade crossing, with locations such as ramps, driveways, etc. And you'll select other only when no other option is correct. Remember, grade crossings are locations where rail tracks and vehicular traffic intersect. For streetcar mode, again, where the rail tracks are in the street, each intersection is a grade crossing. For the collision width selections, a collision with a bicyclist, pedicab, or a person in a wheelchair is reported as a collision with a person. Scooters, mopeds, and motorcycles, however, along with school buses or dump trucks, are all reported as collision with non-transit motor vehicle. Please do not select other and type in school bus. This is considered a motor vehicle. Collision with a transit vehicle is used when 2 transit vehicles from your agency only collide. And in a multiple impact collision scenario, report the collision with as the first object impacted. For example, a train collides with a car and then the car hits a building. The collision with selection would be non-transit motor vehicle, and you would include the damages to the building and that the building was struck in the event description. Look at a few examples of how to determine how many other motor vehicles to report. If car 1 cuts off a light rail vehicle but no contact is made and the light rail vehicle goes on to hit car 2, the number of other vehicles to report is 1 because only car 2 had impact. Now, if car 1 hits car 2 and then proceeds to hit the light rail vehicle, the number of other vehicles to report is 2. Both car 1 and car 2 had contact. Please note that this box is not the total number of vehicles in the collision. It's only the number of non-transit vehicles involved. So please do not include the transit vehicle in this number. The non-transit collision form seen here would appear if you reported a collision that met a threshold, but when asked were transit vehicles involved in this collision, you selected no. This would be appropriate for reporting collisions on transit property when a transit vehicle is not involved. As with other events, a non-transit collision must meet a reporting threshold. Here are a few examples. A privately owned vehicle collides with a pedestrian or private vehicle in a transit parking lot. A privately owned vehicle collides with an object, such as a utility pole, in a transit parking lot. Or a privately owned vehicle collides with the transit center building itself. Now after the collision information or collision event information screen, the collision information screen will appear. This is a snapshot of the first part of the collision information screen. You can see it's asking about conditions such as weather, lighting, and the rail alignment. This is the second half of the collision information screen. It's asking about the grade crossing control, if it's applicable, and the right-of-way conditions. The collision information screen captures information about conditions at the scene, and all modes will capture the weather at the time of the collision. Was it clear, raining, snowing, etc., and will capture the lighting at the time of the collision. The twilight selection in this section is used to refer to both dawn and dusk. Please be sure your lighting cooperates with the AM/PM time you enter on the basic information screen. If the collision occurred in a tunnel or indoor facility, select artificial lighting. Please note this selection is not used to indicate street lights or lights at the platform. Under rail alignment, we're going to look at two of the options. First is the shared with other rail vehicles, controlled access to other non-rail vehicles. You would use this selection when the rail alignment is a semi-exclusive right-of-way with controlled grade crossings for vehicular traffic. The second we're going to look at is the non-exclusive right-of-way shared with vehicles or pedestrians, which would be selected when the rail alignment consists of rail tracks that are embedded in the street and cars can drive over them or pedestrians can walk over them in the same area as the transit vehicle travels. Neither of these options would be selected if the mode is heavy rail, since a heavy rail alignment would always be exclusive, except for two specific agencies that report to us. For the grade crossing control device, please be sure that the selection is consistent with the location that you chose back on the fourth screen, the collision event information screen. Be sure to only choose not applicable if the collision did not occur at a grade crossing. At this point, we have completed the collision event information screen. The next screen to be presented collects information about rail transit train involved. One screen will appear for each train involved. Therefore, if two trains from the same agency collided, you would complete one transit vehicle information form for each train. The form includes an identifier count and buttons for increasing or decreasing the number of vehicles. This is a screenshot of the rail transit train involved screen. You can see the event number at the top with the delete vehicle button down below and the add vehicle over on the right-hand side of the screen. You can also see the train identifier number 1 just above the number of cars in the rail transit train. This form captures the number of cars in a train and the number of cars derailed, the vehicle action at the time of the collision, was it stopped, turning, etc., and the collision type. This is the part of the train that was hit and is reported from the viewpoint of the train. This diagram shows the most of the impact points, which are reported from the point of view of the transit vehicle. So you can see those are the selections we have provided. They're the most common impacts, again, from the point of view of the transit vehicle itself. Multiple vehicle accidents or chain reaction accidents, remember to consider the first impact or collision type in your analysis. In this diagram, vehicle 1 would be reported as rear-ending as it's doing the hitting, which means that vehicle 2 was rear-ended, which then caused vehicle 2 to be pushed into vehicle 3, which is the transit vehicle, which would also be reported as rear-ended. Also report the actual or estimated speed of the transit vehicle at the time of the collision. the transit vehicle manufacturer, which is chosen from a drop-down list of choices, and the vehicle fuel type is also chosen from a list of choices. The last question confirms if the collision involved a runaway train, and if so, then also indicate the location of the operator at the time of the runaway. Now, if you indicated on the collision event screen that another vehicle was involved, the other vehicle information screen will appear. This screen gathers information about non-transit vehicle or vehicles involved in the collision. If more than one other vehicle is involved, you will need to complete one other vehicle involved information form for each of the other vehicles involved. So, for example, a transit vehicle causes a multi-car collision with two autos, then two other vehicle involved screens will be generated and must be completed. This form also includes a vehicle count and buttons for increasing and decreasing the number of other vehicles, just as with the transit vehicle involved screens. So here you go. You can see it's very similar to the transit vehicle involved form with the delete and add buttons up at the top and the vehicle identifier. This form also collects the type of other vehicle. When reporting a collision, the other vehicle screen has a selection for commercial rail and or Amtrak vehicle. The automobile option would only be used for both cars and passenger vans, like a Dodge Caravan, for example. And the action or physical movement of the other vehicle at the time of the collision is also collected. Just as when reporting the transit vehicle collision type, you are indicating the part of the vehicle that was hit from the point of view of the other vehicle. So if the other vehicle was hit in the rear by the front of a vehicle, as it is reported as rear-ended, and if the other vehicle hits the rear of the train with its front end, it is reported as rear-ending, not head-on. Rear-ending and rear-ended are always reported as pair. And any impact point on the side of the vehicle is reported as side impact, except for a side swipe. So that concludes the collision information screen. If your event includes injury or fatalities, you will need to complete a screen for each person. The injury and fatality screens differ slightly. This form also includes a person count and buttons for increasing or decreasing the number of people, just as the vehicle forms did. Person type categories are divided into two groups, persons outside the vehicle and persons inside the vehicle, so be sure to choose carefully. We often see collision reports where the transit vehicle operator is listed as outside the vehicle during the collision. A person who is train surfing or riding between the rail cars is reported as a transit vehicle rider, so please keep that in mind if that is the case. Both the injury and fatality forms include a suicide and a trespasser checkbox, if applicable. However, only the injury form includes selections for the nature of the injury, serious or non-serious, and a checkbox to indicate if the person was transported. Remember that a seriously injured person may not have been transported from the scene. We have a snapshot of the fatality form with the delete person, add person buttons at the top, the identifier just above the category person outside vehicles, and then down below we have the suicide and trespasser checkbox. And this is a snapshot of the injury form for rail modes. Similar to the delete person, add person, injury identifier. We do have the drop down there you'll see for the serious versus non-serious injuries. And then down at the bottom, in addition to suicide and trespasser checkbox, we also have a checkbox for transported from scene for medical attention. When reporting a suicide or attempted suicide, if that involved a collision with a transit vehicle, the event is reported as a collision with a person. However, if the suicide or attempted suicide did not involve contact with a transit vehicle, then it's going to be reported under the other personal security event type. When you are reporting these events on the injury or fatality form, you will check the suicide box. If this is checked on an injury form, we will know that you are reporting an attempted suicide. That's how we determine that. And you may also select the trespasser checkbox as well, in addition to the suicide, if it is applicable. So if they're both trespassing and attempting suicide, then you would check both boxes. All right, so we have concluded reporting collisions. Before we continue on to reporting the other event types and editing reports, let's go on and take a break for questions you may have.
No questions at the moment.
Alrighty, so then I'm going to turn this back over to James, who will go over reporting other event types and editing the reports. James?
Thanks, Tim. As you had mentioned, we will now go over reporting other event types and editing reports. There are three types of evacuations. First, evacuations for life safety, where there is imminent danger to all people in that environment. Second, evacuations to the rail right-of-way. And third, customer self-evacuations. Evacuations can be part of almost any event type, but are least common in collisions. An evacuation requires all passengers and or employees to depart a transit vehicle or facility. For example, a revenue facility evacuated due to fire or smoke event. An example is if passengers are evacuated to the rail right-of-way due to a power failure. Evacuations are not if a person is removed from vehicle for medical treatment, cutting the person out of a vehicle, removing passengers off a vehicle due to a collision, transferring passengers from one train to another where the passengers are not placed on the right-of-way. This is a screenshot of the rail mode evacuation subform. First question on the evacuation event screen is to confirm that the evacuation was for life safety to the rail right-of-way or self-evacuation. You must select as many, or you may select as many options as needed. You must also include a brief description of the evacuation, including the cause. What was evacuated question is used to indicate what was actually evacuated. One choice would be vehicle or vessel, which would mean the train. Do not report the location of the train at the time. Once the evacuation subform is generated in a report, it cannot be deleted. Since evacuation is incorrectly included, the entire report would need to be deleted and a new report entered without the evacuation. Similarly, you cannot add an evacuation subform to a report. Reporting derailments. Of course, this is for rail modes only, not including Commuter Rail or Alaska Railway, since they report only security events. All derailments of transit trains on mainline track or in the yard are reported, even if the train is not in revenue service, and regardless of any other major threshold. On the derailment form, you will be asked to indicate if this is a mainline or yard derailment. Maintenance equipment such as high rail vehicle derailments are also automatically reportable. Reminder, derailments resulting from a collision are reported as collisions, not a derailment. This is a screenshot of the derailment form. As you can see, the form collects the type of derailment, where the derailment occurred, the number of trains involved, the location of the derailment, and the right-of-way configuration. This is a screenshot of the derailment rail transit train involved form. The form also collects information about the train involved, including if the derailment was due to a runaway train. Now we will talk about reporting fires on the S&S-20 that meet one or more major event thresholds. To be defined as a fire, the incident must have had fire suppression, equipment, or personnel involved to contain the fire, and must meet a major event threshold. Without these thresholds, a fire requiring suppression is reported on the S&S-20 non-major summary report. Arson is reported on screen 1 as a system security event, not a fire. The presence of smoke only is reported as an other safety event. Here's a screenshot of the fire event details screen. If a fire is in or on the rail vehicle, including in the engine, wheel area, or anywhere on the outside, this would be reported as in or on vehicle. Report the type or cause of the fire. For the fuel type selection, if you chose the location of the fire as in or on vehicle, then you would report the fuel type of the vehicle. Acts of God are natural and unavoidable catastrophes that affect the transit environment. Select all locations of property damage, injuries or fatalities, and evacuations. You will be able to choose more than one option. For example, the location should indicate the property or properties that were damaged and not the geographic location, such as the name of the city. Act of God screen is actually two screens depicted here as one. When reporting hazardous material spills, the spill must meet a reportable threshold and have caused imminent danger to life, health, or environment, and required specialized cleanup. A couple of examples of what is not reportable as hazmat event: oil, brake fluid, etc. from a transit vehicle, not enough fluid to meet a threshold. A bleach container carried onto vehicle breaks open and the vehicle is evacuated via fumes. This is reported as other safety event because no specialized cleanup was used. This is a screenshot of the hazardous material spill screen. Notice you report the location of the spill and the type of material spilled. There are two categories of security events on screen 1: system security or personal security events, which must meet one or more thresholds. System security events occur on transit property and affect the transit system as a whole. Personal security events happen to individuals on transit property or those boarding or lighting a transit vehicle. This is a screenshot of the system security event screen. You may notice that there is an other system security event option on this form. This would be to capture security events that do not meet any other category. For example, fired at or objects thrown at a vehicle. This is a screenshot of the personal security event screen. You will notice that there is an other personal security event option on this form as well. Another personal security event would be used to report a suicide or attempted suicide that did not involve contact with the transit vehicle, but instead is due to self-inflicted harm. If contact is made with the transit vehicle, this would be reported as a collision. When you are reporting these events on the injury or fatality form, you will check the suicide box. If this is checked on the injury form, we will know you are reporting an attempted suicide. The final major event type is other safety events. This is your miscellaneous category. These events must meet one of the following thresholds: one or more fatalities, two or more injured, either serious or non-serious, substantial damage, an evacuation, or involved a runaway train. Please note, you may report an other safety event with one injury if another threshold is met. Some examples. An evacuation of transit property due to smoke, fumes, or noxious odors. Any fatality on transit property that is not considered a collision or suicide. 2 people thrown from their seats due to a hard brake. 3 people injured when an escalator comes to an abrupt stop. Or an other safety event resulting in a single injury are reported on the S&S-20 monthly summary form. A screenshot of the other safety event screen. So at this point we have completed all our screens for the reportable event types. Now let's review saving, submitting, and editing. At any point from the basic information screen on, the system automatically saves your report. So if you close the report without saving or submitting, these auto-saved reports become pending reports, which are stored as a task on the task menu option. When you are ready to complete the report, click on the task menu option and you will see a listing of each task. Major event report task will appear with S&S-20 in the title. Just click on the task and the system will return you to the screen you were on when you closed the report. Complete the report and save and submit. Or, if you no longer need the report, you can choose delete instead. The system will send you an email that you have a task, and will email monthly to manage the task, or it will be discarded. And submit options appear when you are in view form mode. If you do not see a save or submit button, click on the view form button and scroll to the bottom. Once you click on save, the report is given an event number at the top of the report. The report stays open so you may review it. When you submit a report, the report will close and return you to the dashboard. Submitting the report releases it to the validation analyst for review and comment. It also notifies the analyst that a report has been created, otherwise we may never know one has been created. If we see an unsubmitted report and it is past the due date, we will contact you to submit the report. Please note that unsubmitted reports are excluded from the S&S-20 CEO Certification form. Analysts may return a report to you for questions or to make corrections. The system will send the last modified user one email for each report that is returned. After you make a correction, please be sure to save and submit. Viewing or editing your reports, it is important to learn how to move around the document. Here's a list of the available button tools, though each button may not be available on every form. One shortcut I would like to point out is the Jump To button. This button allows you to jump to a specific screen instead of using the next or back buttons. The Jump To button is also how you will edit reports. The View Form button shows the entire report for review and contains the Jump To buttons and Save and Submit buttons. To open the report, the first screen is the Setup Summary View. This screen is the only place you can edit the date of the event. Also, if your report does not include any injuries or fatalities, this screen is the only place where you can add them. Then you would click on Next, which displays your report in View Form mode. At this point, you can continue to use Next to go to each screen, or you can click on one of the Jump To section buttons. In order to edit a report, you will need to click on the Jump To buttons. As a reminder, Save and Submit only appear in View Form mode. A moment ago, I mentioned how to add injuries or fatalities, if there are not any in the report. However, if there are injuries or fatalities in the report, and you need to increase or decrease the number, you can jump to the Injury or Fatality section and use the Add or Delete Persons buttons. If you choose Delete Person, it will delete the person you are currently viewing. Similarly, you can increase or decrease the number of transit or non-transit vehicles in a report by, again, jumping to the appropriate section and click on Add Vehicle or Delete Vehicle. Be sure to click on Save and Submit after making your changes. If you delete a report, please notify your safety and security analyst. That concludes the presentation, and we will open the lines for questions again. If you did not get a chance to ask your question or prefer to ask it in a one-on-one session, please feel free to contact any of us after the presentation.
I would like to thank everyone for participating in this webinar. A special thank you to Ann, Tim, and James for an informative presentation. Very soon you'll receive an email with a link for our survey. It won't take very long, and NTI greatly appreciates your feedback. Thanks, everybody. Have a good afternoon.